A question that I get asked a lot, I'm sure Father Ben gets asked a lot too, is what do we do with all the commandments of the Old Testament? Well, it's an interesting question, and one I'll address just briefly. There's 613 commandments in the Old Testament. Let's go ahead and take 10 of them and set them over here for right now. You know which 10 I'm talking about, right? So that leaves us with 603. Paul is actually quite clear of, it's actually up to you if you follow those or don't follow those. It's an interesting thought, right? So follow them or don't follow them, I'll leave that to you to figure out. For me, I choose not to. Why? Because I love cheeseburgers, and I think I'm wearing, 8 different types of cloth. So, right, it doesn't work for my life, but if it works for you, go ahead. But of those 10 that we set aside, those are ours. The 10 commandments, the big 10, okay? We have to follow those. They're ours. Right, the ones that God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai, the ones that were carved into the stone, they are ours, and all 10 of them are of equal importance to us. I say it that way on purpose, of equal importance. Because don't raise your hand, but probably sometimes we like to hierarchy them, right? This one's a little bit more important than the others. Here's what I mean. Thou shalt not murder. Okay, we won't do that one. We all agree, right? What about, do not have any other God but me? Sure, yeah, let's hold to that one. We all follow the Trinity. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. When it's convenient, God, right? Again, don't raise your hand, but that's probably most of our approach to it. Remember, it's one of the 10, and yet of the 10, we're mostly like, sure, okay, I'll when I get to it. My point is, we don't really make a big deal of the Sabbath. But as it turns out, Jesus does. I think it's maybe even fair to say of all the 10 commandments, he maybe pushes up against that one more than any other of the 10 commandments. I'm not saying that we're wrong for not holding it or remembering it. I'm just saying that we're maybe a little bit misguided. In the Gospels, there's 7 or 8 stories of Jesus doing something on the Sabbath day that he knowingly is going to get into a confrontation with the scribes and Pharisees about. And I promise you, it's not because he's trying to gaslight them, okay? For him, there's a reason why he's choosing to do these things on the Sabbath. For him, it is ultimately important. He's going out of his way to do these things on the Sabbath day to bring the conversation back to why do we remember the Sabbath and keep it holy? And that's at the heart of what today's gospel is. So as we talk about it, and sometimes I've used this in giving sermons, I like to use the onion analogy. So we're going to peel back layers, right, to get down to the core. So let's start at the surface of our onion, the top one. So our story today starts off with Jesus is in the synagogue on the Sabbath. Anytime a story starts off with that, pay attention, something big is about to happen, okay? And we're told that this woman who for 18 years has been inflicted, she's bent over, it says crippled. She comes to the synagogue to be healed. Now, this is actually quite a common thing that would happen. You would go to these holy places hoping, praying that one of the random wandering healers would be there that day and heal you. Jesus being one of many. Now, that alone might just blow your mind for a second. That's okay. We'll move on, right? This is where the scribes and Pharisees, the leaders of the synagogues, challenge Jesus of, wait a second, dude, what are you doing? You know you can't do that here. Let's peel back the layer. The reason he can't do that on this day is because it's the Sabbath. We all know the Sabbath is a day of rest. It's a day where you're not supposed to work. There's actually so many of those commandments, the 603, that have to do with what exactly classifies as work and not work. So much to say that there's even a distinction of how far can you walk or how far can you travel on the Sabbath until it counts as work, and you can't go any farther than that. Even in today's world, for families who keep Sabbath, they'll make sure to do all of their cooking the day before so that you're not cooking on the Sabbath. I saw this when I was in New York also, that a lot of the elevators click over on the Sabbath so that they just automatically open and close on every single floor. All you have to do is step into it and then step out on your floor. Why? So that you're not pushing the button and working on the Sabbath. It's a day of rest. You don't do work on the Sabbath day. And they're saying, Jesus, you know this. Jesus, you're a holy man. Why are you breaking the rules? And then he hits him with, how many of you would go and untie a donkey or an ox and give them water? How much more then should we do it for this daughter of Abraham? Let's peel back the layer. What I don't want you to walk away with is that Jesus found a loophole. Now, granted, it is fair, right? On the Sabbath, life trumps all, okay? Even on the Sabbath, even though you're not supposed to do work, you're always supposed to preserve life, yes. But I don't want you to think that Jesus pulled one over on them, of oh, Jesus, you did it again, right? That's not what's going on here. He didn't find the loophole to the Sabbath. He's actually recalling to them the purpose of Sabbath. The whole reason we're supposed to be keeping this day holy in the first place. Fast forward, this is why they felt shame, because Jesus revealed to them what was right in their face and they didn't see it. So you see, the Ten Commandments are listed twice in the Old Testament. One set is in Exodus chapter 20, one set is in Deuteronomy chapter 5. In Deuteronomy 5, when it's listing the Sabbath, it says, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. On this day you shall not labor, your family shall not labor, your servants shall not labor, and anyone living in your land shall not labor. Even your animals shall not labor. But then it gives a why. Do not labor because the Lord your God sets you free from the bonds of Egypt. That's an interesting connection to make to a day of rest. The reason we rest is because we were set free from our bonds. That's what Deuteronomy says. The reason we Sabbath is because this is the day that we remember that we once were bound up, but now we are being loosed. That is the purpose of Sabbath, and that's what Jesus is calling us back to. Right? He says, how many of you would loosen the bonds of a donkey? How much more should we loosen the bonds of this woman, as Satan has bound her up for 18 years? Now, sure, there's a lot to be said of Jesus naming Satan. I don't want you to think if he's naming the devil. I'm not saying that there is or isn't. That's not the point of what I'm getting at. Think of it as he's using almost a folklore kind of a way. He's using it as the personification of the force that binds up. Okay? That's the point he's getting at. This woman was bound up. Now I am untying her. She was bound, but now I'm loosening her. Why? Because today is the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a day of loosening. That's what he's getting at. That's why he says it what he says. If you would untie an ox or a donkey on this day, how much more ought we do it this day for this woman? Why? Because today is the day of all days that we loosen the bonds. Today is the day. That's what he's trying to get them to realize. The Sabbath is a day for untying. The reason why we rest is because we have loosened the bonds of everything that holds us, everything that distracts us, everything that keeps us from who we're supposed to be. Today, of all days, we cut those bonds loose so that now we can be who we were meant to be, and now we rest in the presence of the Lord. That's the purpose of the Sabbath. It is a day of untying. It is a day of unbinding. It is a day of loosening. That's the Sabbath. I think it's fair to say that what Jesus is doing is the reason he goes out of his way to talk about Sabbath so much is because Sabbath is central to what he came to do. Sabbath is central to his mission. His purpose is to restore, to loosen the bonds. Let's peel back this onion. Look at how he heals the woman. It's almost the physical bit of it, where she's bent over. He lays his hands on her. She rises up. What happens is now you have to look at her in the eyes, where before you could just as easily dismiss her. Before you could just ignore her. Before you could just say, doesn't matter. But now you're forced to see her in her eyes. You're forced to acknowledge her as a human, as a person. He restores her back to what she was meant to be. He calls her a daughter of Abraham. That's covenant language is what he's doing. You see, this is the ministry of Jesus, unbinding us from all those things that have locked us up, so now we can be who we're meant to be. That's the restoration that Jesus offers. It's a question of how many of us, maybe literally, maybe not, feel like we're walking hunched over, that we have been bound up, that maybe we feel less than, that maybe we don't feel as though our humanity is being seen, that maybe we feel as though no one has acknowledged us or seen us for who we are. And the work of Jesus is coming to each of us and saying, stand up. Let me look you in the eye because you're worth it. That's the work of Jesus Christ. That's the Sabbath work that we do. This is a day of untying, of unbinding. How many of us need to loosen those grips? I think it's been about 8 to 10 years now, but Gallup did a really big study, one of their biggest studies, right there, the poll people. They went and interviewed tens of thousands of houseless people, okay? And they asked them lots of questions. One of the questions, kind of one of those magic wand questions of, right, if you could change any one thing, what would it be? Most of us would probably say, I don't know, having a house or having food or having this. That wasn't it. The number one answer was that people would look us in the eye. Can you believe that? The number one answer of a houseless person is that people would look us in the eye. How much does that tell us how much unbinding we have to be doing in this world? What does that reveal to us of how many people see their own humanity? How many people in the world are probably walking over like this because they don't feel they're worthy to stand up and be seen for who they are? No, you see, this isn't just Jesus' work. Well, it is Jesus' work, but it's Sabbath work. It's Sabbath work because we, the disciples, need to get to work of untying the bonds. We need to get to work of loosening these things where people feel less than, so that their humanity can be restored, so that they can be seen for who they are, the daughter or the son of God. And what Jesus is saying is on this day, it's what we do. Almost, you do anything else you want the other 6 days of the week. But on this day, we loosen the bonds. That's what it means to Sabbath. That's what it means to rest. So I'll leave you with this. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. To God be the glory, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.